Well, good evening. It's nice and warm and toasty in here. Isn't it interesting how in Texas we turn into such weather weenies? It doesn't matter where we come from originally, but when we get to Texas and our blood thins out and it's lower than 40 degrees, we're just dead in the water. And we don't want to go anywhere, and we just kind of huddle up, and we're so bad that way. So I'm glad you're here. Hopefully we can get a chance to talk about a couple of things tonight that maybe helps, and I hope maybe makes your week coming up a little bit easier as we kind of start out the new year. I heard an interesting quote the other day from, I believe it was Mark Twain, who said the two most important dates of your life are number one, when you're born, and number two, when you figure out why you're here, when you figure out why you were born. Well, I think that's kind of important for us to be able to understand maybe what our purpose is. And we think, well, in the gospel, we think we know what our purpose is. But the problem is that part of what we get taught in the church is that we sat in a council in heaven and we heard about the plan of happiness. This is the plan of happiness. We're living the plan of happiness. I had a man sitting in my office the other day, and he went, "So where's the joy in all of this?" Life was really hard, and he was having a hard time, and he just like, I'm doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing. Where's the joy? And got me thinking that sometimes I think in the grind of everything that's going on in our lives, especially when you're battling singlehood, that sometimes you feel like happiness and joy just got sucked right out of you at certain times. And so I'll kind of address that tonight a little bit if I can. So, who are you? Now, regardless of who you are and where you come from, you can't escape one really important point. And that is, you were created to joy. To be joyed. And to be enjoyed. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that your eternal destiny, everything you were kind of formed for, was to create you, to put you into a place where you can joy. Now, in the church, when we talk about somebody having joy, being filled with joy, in the scriptures it has a really specific definition of joy. And that is, joy is living the kind of life God lives. Joy means feeling what He feels. That means feeling what He feels. It means loving like He loves. It means being godlike in all that we do. Now, here's the challenge though. Because we're fallen, we have to somehow be transformed into somebody that can hold joy. In our present state, we're a little leaky that way. God tries to pour joy in us, and it kind of runs out in all directions. We got like this leaky bucket thing going on, and we can't hold the joy He wants to put in us. Now, the fascinating part about that is that we know sometimes joy is out there. There may have been times in your life where you felt like you kind of brushed up against joy, and then it lingers for a little bit, and then it kind of disappears. I don't know if you ever had that experience, kind of being asleep and you're going through this wonderful dream, and you wake up and you can't remember the dream, and you know the dream was great, but you can't remember what it was. But you know it was good. And you almost try to roll over and go back to sleep and let me continue on with the dream. But it never comes back. But you know it was good. Well, sometimes we get these moments where we push up against the joy window. Or we feel a little bit of joy for a few minutes. And then it leaks out again. And it's enough to say, we think we know, it's kind of out there, it's just on the other side of the veil. If I could just do something. Now, fascinating part is that everything that we're about usually in life these days is about finding happiness. I want happiness. You know, I was looking at an old, somebody put out a video, maybe some of you have seen it online, of an old dating site from the 80s. And they're showing all these guys on these dating videos that you could like rent out, and you get to see videos of people on these old dating sites before the internet, okay? So these guys are all recording themselves so that somebody can come in and watch videos of themselves on this dating service. And every one of them are going, and of course it's 80s, you know, so it's like we're doing the real crass kind of, and they're just like, I just want to have fun. Ladies ought to find me because I'm looking to have some fun. No, really, I want to find a woman that I can have fun with. I'm into having fun. Everybody's wanting fun. Well, anymore, we get the sense that our job is to be happy, right? Don't worry. Be happy. Smile. You're supposed to have fun. This life is good. Just pull yourself up. Don't be so sad, Gus. Kind of be happy. So you're going to try and be happy. Now, fascinating, if I look at the things that kind of make me happy, if I want to really kind of be happy on a Saturday afternoon, I'll head over to Hutchins Barbecue. That makes me happy. And then I'm happy for a little while, and then it's gone, and then I'm hungry again. And you may go get a good meal, and you get this reminder of, hey, this is really good. And then I'm not full anymore, or maybe it just didn't work out that well, or maybe the food wasn't that great. And we get this reminder that those kind of happiness kind of end. I enjoyed the heck out of Star Wars. There was another great one. Hey, fun time. And then it's over. A few bad things happen. And then the next one's coming next year. So now I don't get to be happy like that one until this time next year. And J.J. Abrams isn't even directing the next one. How do I know if I'll be as happy? So we go to a movie and then we're kind of happy for a little while, or maybe it stinks a little bit, but maybe we're happy, we really enjoyed it, then we've got to get in the car and go home and go back to our lives. And maybe it ain't so happy. And again, we get this idea that the things we do in life have an end. There's a stopping point on our happy. Let me give you another one. It's a nice thing to remember on a cold winter's day that was so deep. It's a nice warm spring day and we go out and it's nice and warm and we're out in the sun and it's a blue sky and we're just enjoying that. Now the next day it might be rainy or the sun goes down and it ends again. Again, the things we're looking for happiness have this ending point on them and then they're over. What happens if you enjoy the summer day too much? You didn't bring your sunscreen. Well, now that happy makes you miserable. So it was supposed to be happy. I did the happy. I wanted the happy so much. I stayed out in the happy all day long. I didn't go inside. I didn't put on any sunscreen because I wanted to enjoy the happy. I'm soaking in all the happy I can get. And tomorrow, I'm way miserable. Now, let's say the next day is a nice, happy spring day. But you're in pain. Or maybe you've lost somebody that's important to you and you're actually mourning. Is that happy anymore? If you're hurting and happy is supposed to be happening and happening is a bright spring day, it ain't so happy. In fact, sometimes when we're hurting and happy is going on and somebody else is enjoying the happy, we're mad. I'm hurting, I'm angry, you're happy. I'm mad at you because you're having happy and I'm not. We get caught up in what is happy and what is not. The problem is all of our worldly happies have a beginning and an end. They're never meant to be eternal. And when we talk about joy, that we're going to talk about tonight, joy is eternal in nature. It lingers. It stays. And it's supposed to grow inside of us. And that's kind of the goal. Now, I love the idea that C.S. Lewis put out, and that is this idea that God is working on us. He's constructing something. And what C.S. Lewis used to say is that he's creating this hollow inside of us that God can pour joy into. So if you think about it, you're actually under construction at the moment. And I believe, my own self, that every time we contact heaven, whether we're sitting in a meeting like this, we're partaking of the sacrament, we're in prayer, we're sitting in the celestial room, we're reading our scriptures. At those moments, I believe when we contact heaven, it's like we open our hearts up, and the Lord says, let me reach down and start to keep hollowing out a spot in you so that I can pour my joy into you. And not only that, you're kind of leaky. You leak a lot. So let me, as part of my joying, let me kind of seal that space off inside of you so that the joy doesn't leak out quite so much. Does that make sense? So God is trying to create a spot in you that will hold the joy. That's the idea. Now, fascinating, by the way, side note, when we think about sealing off something so that it won't leak, one of the first examples that we have in all of Scriptures is Noah's Ark. And the Scripture says that they took the ark and they put tar around it, a substance around the outside of the ark, so that the water couldn't get in, so it would hold the people and not leak. The word that is used to cover the pitch, the pitch that was used on the ark, is in Hebrew called kafar. Do you know what the English translation for kafar is? It's covering. It's kapor. It's like the skull cap that the Jews wear. It's a covering. And the best translation for kapor, or kippurim, what they wear, the best word is atonement. That the atonement is to be a covering that keeps the other stuff out and holds in the people there that He's placed in that spot. Okay? So, we're going to talk about the process of letting God fill us with His joy. That's our idea. And so it doesn't leak out the other end. Now, I know, this is kind of my own little project that I do, is that as I meet people in the course of a day, or I meet people at church or something, haven't you noticed that some people seem to be at different spots in their construction process? Haven't you noticed that some people, it's almost like if you could peel away your earthly vision, you could almost see the celestial scaffolding around them. And like see angels working away, plugging holes. And they're being built into somebody who can hold joy. Well, I look for those people. And one of the things that I've done, especially as a counselor, I'm trying to say, well, I want my clients like them. I want to help people become more like these people. who seem to be joying pretty well. My clients aren't always joying very much. That's why they're coming to see me, so that they can start getting rid of the other stuff so that they can be joyed more. I figure that's my job. Help people joy, which is not a bad gig in my mind. I like that a lot. So, here's what I've noticed, and is that there seems to be certain characteristics of people who seem to joy better, who seem to be more open to God's construction project, who put themselves in a place to be joyed. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I want to do is just, for the remainder of the time, kind of go through some of the characteristics and traits of good joyers. People who seem to joy well. Is that fair? Okay. All right. So, trait number 1. People that joy, people that are in the process of being joyed and being constructed to joy, my experience is that good joyers are very unfailingly kind. Good joyers, kind, are very, very kind to people around them. Doesn't matter whether it is family, friends, waitress at a restaurant, the pushy lady that pushes in front of you at the supermarket because it's more important to her to push you out of the way because she's got to get through that line and get out of there. The kid with the weird hat that cuts you off in traffic. Good joyers are unfailingly kind to almost everybody they meet. Now, we might check ourselves and say, well, how am I on the kind scale? Now, let's face it. When we get to this point in our life, and it doesn't matter whether you're single or married or been divorced or never married or whatever, guys, we have scars. We got wounds, man. We've been through it. We got stories. I mean, if you're going to meet somebody for the first time, like if you're at a dance or you're just kind of sitting in a potluck and you're sitting across from each other, it's like, well, tell me about you. And I know what that is. You want to know about this much. What do you do and where do you live and what ward do you live in? You want about that much of that, right? What you really want is, tell me your stuff. What kind of stuff you carry? But I don't want too much of that stuff. Give me an idea. Because I got my stuff and I'm not sure I want to tell you that stuff. I'll give you a little bit of the stuff. If you get to know me better, you might get more of the stuff, but most of my stuff I'm keeping. But it's enough of our experiences where if we understood our ability, we should be the kindest people on the planet. Because we know what we know. There is no excuse for a Latter-day Saint to know what we know and be unkind to just about anybody. It's who we are. It's what we know. Now, here's the corollary to that. So good joyers are kind. Number 2, good joyers receive kindness well. I've talked about this in some other places. Good joyers are good receivers. They receive kindness. Should I tell them about Malta? I'll tell them. Got back a few weeks now from a trip. Supposed to be going to the Holy Land. At the last minute, the cruise ship decided that they were going to be a little nervous and they weren't comfortable going to Israel. So instead, our little Bible group that we had on board the ship ended up going to some pretty fun places. Ephesus, Corinth, Athens, Crete, a number of great places. But on Sunday, we were stopping in the island of Malta. Malta is British, in the middle of all these Greek islands. Malta has a small branch. This little branch, mainly kind of British and Australian expats that live there, this branch has about 25, 30 people in it that meet on Sunday in this little space on the island of Malta. Well, it turned out that on our ship we had 4 LDS groups, about 150 LDS people. And when our itinerary got a little changed here, got on the horn to the branch president in Malta and said, there's a branch, yes. How many have you got? About 25. We'd like to bring some extra guests to come and join you on Sunday. Good. How many? About 150. And he said, okay. So one of the first things that they did in Malta is that this wonderful little branch president went down to the city hall and found the biggest space that he could locate to rent out for the Sunday that we were in Malta. One that would hold about 200. So on Sunday, the branch moved their entire selves to the city center, up above the health clinic, up on the top floor, in a driving rainstorm. And then we pulled up in several buses and offloaded 150 Latter-day Saints and packed this hall in Malta with about 200. I don't believe, brothers and sisters, that any experience we might have had, and Jordan, you agree with me on this, any experience we might have had in Israel might have topped what we felt in that branch. For the most part, we knew we were guests. And for the most part, none of us that were visiting there got up and bore our testimony because it was Fast and Testimony Sunday. What we heard instead was member after member after member in this little branch standing up in tears to express their gratitude and thanks and love that we had come to visit. One dear sister got up near the end and she said, all my life I have dreamed of being able to go visit a large ward or branch of the church that would have around 200 people in it. I've never been able to do that. I've only kind of been here. And she said, today the Lord brought you to me. Thank you. And there was this tremendous outpouring of love with these strangers who were no more strangers, but fellow citizens, to a group of us that were still kind of feeling a little bruised that we hadn't had a chance to go to the Holy Land. And what they did is create the Holy Land for us, there, in that little spot, in a driving rainstorm in Malta. And I don't know that I have ever been so impacted by a fast and testimony meeting as I was that day. And part of why it is that it meant so much to us that were there was their kindness in receiving us. The kindest thing they did for us was to let us be there for them. Brothers and sisters, one of the things that we wrestle with in this church is the ability of letting people serve us. We are great at serving others. We're in control of how we do it. We feel good when we're serving and we're supposed to serve. And I get it. We're supposed to be service-oriented and we should serve at every opportunity. But somewhere in there we get mixed up and we forget to let people serve us and do things for us. We have to say thank you. We have to be humble. We have to receive it. We have to let it in. And yet, the moment that we're receiving somebody else's service is the closest we will come to understanding the atonement. Because the atonement is us getting something we didn't deserve in the first place. We didn't deserve it and we got it. We expected a little, we got a lot. When you are single in this church, there are times you just need to be served. There are times that you need to reach out. And if you're going to turtle up inside your pride and not ask for help, and then be hurting in your apartment because nobody's there for you, and you're not willing to open your mouth and say, I'm lonely, I need some help, or bang on the bishop's door until he opens it, you almost deserve what you get. We need to be served, and part of being joyful is allowing people to be there for you. Now, in this society that you have, in this singles community, you have people who know what you're going through. They get it. They've been there. And we got to ask for help. And, well, if I ask for help, they might say no, or I don't think I deserve it. Or I feel like I asked for help too much. Or I asked somebody and they said no. Then ask somebody else. Part of being joyful is the ability to say, I needed your help and you were there. Thank you. Instead, what happens, we get up in a setting like this and we're asked to speak in church, and somebody says afterwards, George, that was a wonderful talk. And you go, nah, it wasn't that great. I ran out of things to say. Threw the thing together from last night. I forget that whole middle section, and I'm not sure it heard me. Or we'll do this, and I love this one. Here's the spiritual cover. Well, it wasn't me. I just started speaking, and the Lord filled me, and so I was just a vessel, and I was just lifted above myself. So it wasn't really me at all. So thank the Lord, and I was just lucky I didn't screw it up. So I can't take it. So you can't take a compliment? No, that would be selfish. I don't know how to do that. Stop it! Because we get caught up in that. There are times you've worked your tail off for days to get ready for a talk, and you have studied and you have prepared and you fasted, David, and you went to the temple and you put some thoughts together, and it came together very well. And somebody says, that was a wonderful talk, and you say, thank you. I appreciate that. I worked hard on that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'm glad that the Spirit was there. People who joy accept service. They're good receivers. So, people who joy are kind. People that joy are good receivers. Here's the next one. People who joy are very fast forgivers. People who joy are very fast forgivers. They forgive quickly. Not because unfairnesses didn't happen. They did. But because it ain't worth it to hang on to anything very long. Let me, for a minute. Georgia, can I borrow you for a sec? I can pick on her. We've been places. Okay. This is from, if I can pick one of my favorite parts in all of Scriptures, right at the end, the first part of 2nd Nephi, we get this wonderful Psalm of Nephi. This psalm in 2nd Nephi 4 is so great that when I was at BYU and I was taking a class in Hebrew, I had a chance to be taught by a visiting professor by the name of Yonatan Shinari. Yonatan had grown up on a kibbutz in Israel. He was on loan to BYU from Hebrew University in Israel. When he came across the Psalm of Nephi, he was so impressed by it that he said, this is Hebraic in nature, and he wrote it out in Hebrew, a copy for each one of us in the class. Because he saw something in this that said, this is Old Testament in nature. This is beautiful. This is Hebraic. Which is, by the way, is not bad for supposedly Joseph Smith wrote it, right? Or not. Okay? So here's part of what he says on this. Georgia, why don't you start with verse 20?
My God has been my support. He hath led me through mine afflictions in the wilderness.
Okay, stop. How were his afflictions in the wilderness? How did Nephi do in the wilderness?
His brothers tried to kill him.
Yeah, it was awful. And they had the whole raw meat thing going, and the broken bow thing. Yeah, it was rough. So when he's talking about afflictions, he's not going like, it wasn't too bad. No, it was bad. Okay, and?
And he hath preserved me upon the waters of the great deep.
Isn't that nice? Okay, I was preserved. Keep going.
He hath filled me with his love, even unto the consuming of my flesh.
Okay, that's helpful. And then this verse.
He hath confounded mine enemies unto the causing of them to quake before me.
Wow, so he had enemies, and the Lord upheld him enough that he caused his enemies to quake. Wait a minute, who were his enemies that he caused to quake? Wow. Well, that's pretty harsh. He's talking about his enemy. He's talking about his brothers. Okay, they're his brothers. They were just kind of doing this normal brotherly thing, right? No, they tried to kill him several times. So that's pretty serious. He's got stuff. How was your life? Well, I have a little post-traumatic stress. Really? Why? Well, my brothers tried to kill me. Oh, come on. They really didn't try. No, they really did try to kill me. It's really true. Okay. So the Lord is... So in other words, he's saying, here's my enemies. And then he's going to say, verse 27.
And why should I yield to sin because of my flesh? Yea, why should I give way to temptations that the evil one hath placed in my heart to destroy my peace and afflict my soul? Why am I angry because of my enemy?
Ooh. Listen to that again. He says, why would I give place to temptation? What's the temptation? To be angry, right? To be, that I may give the evil one place in my heart to do what? Destroy my peace. Well, you might look at it and say, well, oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. No, it was really that bad. Well, if it was that bad, then he has a right to be angry, and no wonder he's not at peace. But the reality is, what's going on with Nephi? He's angry, and when he's angry, what happens? Destroys his peace. Nephi wants to be at peace, and he can't be at peace when he's mad at his brothers, who he calls his enemies. Wow, okay. And then we get this wonderful one in verse 28.
Awake, my soul, no longer droop in sin. Rejoice, O my heart, and give place no more for the enemy of my soul.
Isn't that awesome? Thank you. Awake, O my soul. No longer droop. Well, wait a minute. I have a right to be angry at my ex. I have a right to be angry at my mom, who was really rigid, or she was an alcoholic, or I have a right to be angry at whatever. Okay, legitimate things happen. But the problem is when we hold on to that kind of anger and grief and grudge, what happens to our peace? It's gone. And so what happens is that we have become captive to the worst moments of our life. We allow the worst people and the worst moments and the worst experiences, and we rent out a spot in our brain and let them live there and continue to beat us up. Awake, O your soul. Joyful people are quick forgivers. They let go quickly. Why? Not because what happened to them wasn't horrific, it may have been. But they let go quickly because their peace is more important than hanging on to the selfish actions of other people. Joyful people just let it go. You say, well, that's really easy to say. It is. I will let it go when they apologize. They will apologize when something freezes over. I will let it go when they make it right. I will let it go when they just get theirs. I will let it go when they quit doing this and this and this. I will quit being angry at my dad when he stops calling me up and saying this. I will quit being angry at my daughter when she stops doing this. I will let other people control how I feel. And I will withhold my joy and be miserable because of somebody else's selfish actions. Joyful people are quick forgivers. And so people sit in my office and say, how do I know I've forgiven? It's very easy. You know that you're forgiven when you're at peace. If you're not at peace, you haven't forgiven. Now, legitimately, there may be times that you're still grieving. And I get it. And give yourself a period of time to grieve. But joyful people are fast forgivers. They really are. Okay, so to this point, joyful people are kind. Joyful people are good receivers. Joyful people are fast forgivers. Here's another one. And let me just put it as I wrote it. In addition, those who search for joy, listen close, do not remain in toxic or destructive or abusive settings or relationships. Can you just say that one again? Those who in search of joy do not remain in toxic or destructive or abusive settings or relationships. When their attempts at kindness are consistently met with hostility. They do the kindest thing possible. They leave. Joy cannot and will not grow in an environment of anger, intimidation, and hurtfulness. These attacks are attacks on your soul. They are attacks on your peace. They are contrary to the whisperings of heaven, which speaks in a still, small voice. So as I've said in other settings, I don't care where you are. If you are in a situation where you are currently being yelled at, and despite attempts to calm that energy down, if it's going to be yelling, then it's a situation that you may need to step out of, either temporarily or permanently. Don't stay in hostile, abusive, angry situations. That's why for all of the painfulness sometimes of being single, I celebrate that many of you are. Because if your alternative was to stay in a destructive relationship, bless your heart, you got yourself out of there. And I'm proud of you, because it was important that you not stay. You will find more joy, even through all the struggles of being single, than staying in an abusive relationship. Does that make sense? Now, kindness means... Now you say, well, wait a minute, I should be kind. I should be kind. Kindness doesn't translate to doormat, last time I checked. Kindness doesn't equate to allowing yourself to be run over. You are not doing somebody else any favor if you let them hurt you or run over you. That's not kind. It's not kind to them, and it's not kind to you. So you get out. And then you try and come back, and if that can't be healed, it may be toxic and it may be permanent, or it may be temporary. But in search of joy, you need to put yourself in positions and surround yourself with people that will serve you and that you can serve, that aren't going to be toxic or hurtful or painful. Okay. Finally, last point. Another trait I found of joyful people is that they come to trust their own inspiration. It is true that there's joy in the journey, but because joy, as it grows, is meant to kind of be our celestial GPS, it guides and directs us along the way. It's important that we come to trust our own inspiration. Well, Brother Hinckley, I married him because I thought the Lord told me that I was supposed to marry him, and we'll see it. We saw how that went. That one blew up on me. Or like the man that came up to me after one conference and said, all 4 marriages, I thought I had the right answer. Didn't go well. Well, let's say you dated. We'll keep that between us, okay, Tess? Yeah, it didn't go well. So why would I want to trust my own inspiration? Part of the damage that comes, especially in the church, from having those experiences where we thought we got an answer and it blew up in our face, is that we quit trusting our own inspiration. Isn't it fascinating, I think? We were in Gospel Doctrine today. And I love the story. We're doing the Tree of Life. Some of you probably did the same lesson. You're probably doing the same lesson in Malta, for all I know. fascinating that you've got Lehi running around in the dream in the wilderness, and along comes an angel, and he's rescued. It was a wilderness, and the angel says, "Follow me." So he follows the guy in the white robe, and what happens next? He ends up in a dark and dreary waste. Now, somewhere in there, I can almost picture Lehi going, "Well, that didn't work out very well. When I get rescued, it's supposed to be a good thing. I was in a wilderness, I followed the guy in the white coat, and now I'm in a waste. Thank you so much." There is no promise that when you get rescued that you will immediately be in a better situation. Let me give you two quick examples. Rocky Ridge and Martin's Cove. Two of the most harrowing experiences in our entire church history are the two handcart companies in 1857 out on the plains of Wyoming. The Willie Handcart Company ahead, the Martin Handcart Company behind, almost at the same moment. They're both snowed in. Salt Lake didn't know they were coming. The wagon trains hadn't been set yet. They were dying. And to the Willie Handcart Company comes the first set of wagons, and they find them, and they go, "You're too exposed. We're going to have to climb up this rocky escarpment to get to the other side." And the worst part for the Willie Handcart Company was having to climb Rocky Ridge in a blinding snowstorm. 17 people died at the top of that, and many are still buried there. And they had already been rescued. For the Martin Handcart Company, you've heard the stories of them, the last crossing of the Sweetwater, and they had to go cross through the river, and there were more than 3 guys. There were a number of people taking these people across, and then they got into the cove, and they were freezing to death. They had already been rescued. It had already happened. I know my pioneer grandfather was one of the rescuers, along with Ephraim Hanks, that was featured in Ephraim's rescue. And he was rescuing Martin Handcart Company and the rescuers who had rescued them. They were all there together. Sometimes we follow the inspiration and we are led out of the situation we're in, and for a period of time, it will seem like we've gone from a wilderness to a waste. We've gone from the bottom of Rocky Ridge to the top of Rocky Ridge. That doesn't mean that you weren't rescued. It just simply means that there's no guarantee on the front end, that sometimes the rescue is harder. The problem is at those moments that we give up on ourselves and our own inspiration. My experience is that joyful people learn to trust their own inspiration, and when their celestial GPS is going off, they learn to trust it. They follow it. Because the Lord wants to lead them to joy. As it turned out, Lehi, sitting in the dark and dreary waste, simply needed one more angel standing there saying, "Look." And it turned out he was right by the tree. The darkness cleared, and he was already there. So let me finish with one last one there. There was one last one. So finally tonight, we wrap up. My experience with joyful people is that they live with a sense of awe. They are awed by stuff. They are excited by stuff. I've mentioned in other settings that my son married into a family and his father-in-law may be the most joyful man I've ever met in my life. And it's his attitude that draws people to him and has made his life rich and fulfilling. Last time he was in town, show up, where are we going to take him? Well, let's go get some barbecue. Okay, off to Hutchins we go. And I take him up to Hutchins, and afterwards I said, so how was that? And he goes, outstanding. Oh, it was outstanding. Okay? The next time he comes in town, we take him to another place. How was that? Oh, outstanding. It was wonderful. Okay? Last year he comes into town, we're going to send him down. Hey, it's spring, let's have you go see the bluebonnets. Send him off. Why don't you go down here, go see the bluebonnets. Afterwards, I talk to him. How are the bluebonnets? Ah, amazing. Wow. Outstanding. Well, that's pretty infectious. I don't know that I have ever suggested somewhere or someplace or some activity or ran into him from the moment that I have known him where everything hasn't been outstanding. And you know what? He's not making it up. He's loving every minute of what he does. And it's infectious. When you're around him, everything is outstanding. People who live with awe and joy, listen closely, are more attractive, draw people to them, they are less lonely, they are more joy-filling for other people, because you live life in awe. You are awed by the wonderful things that happen around you. Things aren't just really cool, they are outstanding. So that's going to be my challenge to you tonight as we conclude. I want you to live an outstanding life. I want you to live a joyful life. That doesn't mean that bad things haven't happened. They have. Unfairness, things have happened to you. Your lives have turned out different than what you expected. It's been filled with some scars and some bumps and things that you wouldn't have anticipated. And I'm sorry they happened. But in the moment, when you are surrounded by these kind of people, guess what? It's outstanding. You are surrounded by really good people who understand where you are, who will love you if you'll let them, who will serve you if you will just extend yourself, and love the moment. And you get to be joyful. My testimony is that the Lord intends you to be joyful. He intends to fill that hollow inside of you that came with being fallen. He intends to plug the holes and expand and grow your ability to hold and retain joy. That limitless joy that fills you can be then used to bless the lives of others. And guess what? As you fill the lives of others, your own joy bucket grows larger. And the leaking holes disappear. Until the perfect day when you have a celestial body that can eternally hold an endless, boundless, eternal joy that He intends for you. I bear you my testimony, that's His intent. That's why you were born, and that's your destiny. In the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.